Hello everybody, welcome to the I Am IT Geek YouTube channel. My name is Shabazz, and as ever, I am the IT Geek. I've had a little bit of a break in my videos, just because just busy with life in general. But we are back and we are starting a new topic. So we're going to be on topic 10 now. We are coming towards like the last 5 topics now of the whole series really. So it's a lot more content to cover because it's obviously architecture, cybersecurity, so a lot more content to cover. But we're going to continue on those sort of cybersecurity topics in this video. So this is now, as I mentioned, this is topic 10, part 1, and we are on the Microsoft Cybersecurity Architect SE100 exam series. And today is the start of topic 10, which is designing solutions for securing applications. So we're going to talk about an introduction to app security, and then we'll look at design and implement standards to secure app development. In the demo, we're actually going to look at the Microsoft service bench, that sort of security benchmark, and the sort of controls the DevOps security and what we can do specifically to remediate those. So we're going to be talking about those actual remediations in this episode, and then I'll show them as well. We'll talk about how we can remediate them. So let's have an introduction to app security. So this is the sort of DevOps security that I discussed, and we're going to be showing shortly in the demo. But DevOps security covers the controls related to security engineering and sort of operations in DevOps processes, including deployment of sort of critical security checks, such as static applications or application security testing, vulnerability management, and so on. And this is before the deployment phase, so it ensures that security throughout that DevOps process also includes sort of common topics such as sort of threat modeling and software supply security. We can see here that we've got security controls, and the supported ones are enabled by default. So we've got, first we said DS1 there, conduct threat modeling, and this is to perform threat modeling to identify the potential threats and sort of enumerate and mitigate controls. We have then DS2, so this is DevOps Security 2, which is ensure software supply chain security. So this is to ensure your enterprise software development lifecycle, or SDLC, or processing sort of includes a set of security controls to govern sort of in-house or third-party software components, where your applications have sort of dependencies. You have DS3, which is secure DevOps infrastructure. So this is to ensure the DevOps infrastructure and pipeline sort of follow security best practices across your environments, including sort of build, test, and production stages. DS4 is integrate static application security testing into DevOps pipelines. So this is to ensure your static application security testing, or SAST, fuzzy testing, and sort of interactive testing and mobile application testing as well, a part of that sort of gating controls in that CI/CD workflow. DS5 is sort of integrate dynamic application security testing into your DevOps pipeline. So you got to ensure dynamic application security testing, which is DAST. Make sure that's part of the gating controls in those CI/CD pipeline workflows as well. DS6 is enforce security for workload throughout DevOps lifecycle. So you need to ensure the workload is secured throughout that sort of entire lifecycle in development, testing, and the sort of the deployment stages. And again, you can use Microsoft Security Benchmark to evaluate those controls. I'm going to show that later on the demo. Finally, DS7 enable logging and monitoring in DevOps. So you need to ensure your logging and monitoring scopes include non-production environments and CI/CD workflow enablements used in DevOps. Again, I'm going to show some of those remediations shortly. Let's move on now to talk about design and implement standards to secure app development. So typically, modern development follows an agile sort of modern deployment. So it follows an agile sort of development methodology. Scrum is an implementation of agile methodology that has every sprint start with a sort of planning activity. And introducing security into this part of the development process should focus on sort of threat modeling, ID security plugins, and peer reviews and sort of secure coding standards, which are going to allow you to identify sort of effective security coding standards, peer review processes, and sort of pre-commit hooks. It's not mandatory to add all these steps, but each step does help reveal security issues early when they're sort of much cheaper and easier to fix. Talk about threat modeling, it's arguably the most important security practice. It delivers immediate results and helps establish a security mindset in developers to improve security in all their sort of future projects. And it's a simple concept, although it can be detailed and technical if needed as well. Threat modeling reveals and documents a realistic security view of your application, and it includes sort of how attackers can abuse application design, how to fix vulnerabilities, how important it is to fix issues. Typically, developers create, manage, and share their code in repositories such as GitHub or Azure repos. This approach provides a sort of central version control library of code for developers to collaborate on easily. However, enabling many sort of collaborators and collaborative methods on a single code base also runs the risk of changes being introduced. And that risk can lead to vulnerabilities or unintentionally including credentials or tokens in your commits. To address this risk, development teams should evaluate and implement a repository scanning capability. Repository scanning tools perform static code analysis on source code within your repositories, and the tools look for sort of vulnerabilities or credential changes and sort of flag any items for remediation. And this capability acts to protect against sort of human error, and it's useful. It's a useful safeguard as well for sort of distributed teams where many people are collaborating in the same repository. So let's talk about the plan and develop now. So again, we've talked about these agile methodologies, and we've talked about how Scrum is quite important to that. And we talked about the threat modeling. That's going to give you a view of the application through that lens of a potential attacker. The ID security plugins as well, and the pre-commit hooks. These are for sort of lightweight static analysis checking within that sort of integrated development environment or ID environment. And finally, that sort of peer review and secure coding standards. And that's going to allow you to identify those effective security coding standards, those peer review processes, those pre-commit hooks that we talked about. Let's talk about that sort of commit the code. So up to 90% of code in current applications contains elements or is based on external packages and libraries. With the adoption of dependencies in the source code, it's essential to address potential risk, and many third-party libraries have sort of serious security problems. Also, developers don't consistently follow the best life cycle, and they don't keep dependencies up to date. You need to ensure that your development team knows what components to include in their applications, and they'll want to download secure and up-to-date versions from known sources, and they'll want to have a process for keeping versions up to date as well. Your team can use tools like OWASP, sort of dependency check project, white source, and others. To focus only on dependency vulnerabilities or their sort of lifecycle isn't enough, though. It's also important to address package feed security, and there are known attack vectors that target package management systems, so you need to be careful of that. After your team addresses those third-party libraries and package management, it's essential to shift that focus and improve that sort of code security. One way is to introduce static code analysis inside that sort of continuous integration. And this method verifies sort of security as soon as that code changes happen. And then we talk about secure pipelines as well. DevOps takes automation to another sort of level because everything's in that development lifecycle goes through a pipeline. Continuous integration and continuous delivery, or CI/CD, these are key parts of that modern development cycle. In CI/CD, your team merges developer code into a central code base on a sort of regular schedule and automatically runs standard builds and sort of test processes. Infrastructure pipelines are a central part of that development, but using pipelines to run scripts or deploy code to production environments can introduce unique security challenges. You want to make sure your CI/CD pipelines don't become avenues to run malicious code, allow credentials to be stolen, or give attackers any sort of surface area for access. You also want to ensure that only the code your team intends to release then deploys. So DevOps teams must ensure they implement the proper security controls for the pipelines. Depending on the chosen platform, there are different sort of guidelines on how to address those risks. Let's talk a little bit about that build and test now. So in a classical sort of waterfall development model, security was typically introduced at the sort of last step, right before going to production. One of the most popular security approaches is penetration testing or pen testing. And penetration testing lets your team look at the application from a sort of black box security perspective, as in the closest to an attacker mindset. A penetration test consists of several action points, one of which is dynamic application security testing, or DAST. And DAST is a web application security test that sort of finds security issues in the running application by seeing how it responds to specific crafted requests. DAS tools are also known as web application vulnerability scanners. One example of this is sort of an open source tool, which is OWASP Z-Attack Proxy or ZAP. And it finds vulnerabilities in running the web application. And there are different ways it can scan. You can do a passive baseline scan or a full scan. Alongside scanning or securing the code for applications, be sure that the environments you deploy applications into are also secure. Secure environments are key for organizations who want to move at sort of pace, innovate and use sort of new technologies. Secure environments also help teams create new environments quickly for experimentation. In infrastructure as code, or IAC, is the sort of the management of the infrastructure, the networks, the virtual machines, the load balancers, and sort of connection topology, and in a descriptive model. Infrastructure as code uses the same versioning model as DevOps teams use for their source code, and like the principle of the same code, source code generates the same binary. And infrastructure as code model generates the same environment every time it's applied. Infrastructure code is a key DevOps practice that's used with sort of continuous delivery, DevSecOps sort of thing, sort of element. With the adoption of cloud, containerization is also a popular approach that teams take in application architecture decisions. Some of the container repositories scan sort of images to catch packages with sort of known vulnerabilities. And there's still the risk of a container that might have out-of-date software as well. So let's now move on to talk about going to production. So for visibility into cloud subscriptions and sort of resource configuration across multiple subscriptions, use the sort of Azure Tenant Security solution from the AZSK team. Azure includes monitoring and security capabilities, and these capabilities detect and alert on anomalous events or configuration that require investigation and potential remediation. Technologies such as Defender for Cloud and Microsoft Sentinel are sort of first-party tools that natively integrate into the Azure environment. And these technologies complement the environment and the code, security tools. They also provide thorough security monitoring so organizations can experiment and innovate quickly and securely. Penetration testing is recommended practice, as well as we've talked about already, to check any vulnerabilities in the infrastructure or applications configuration, which might create weaknesses that attackers can exploit. Many products and sort of partners offer penetration testing services, and Microsoft provides more sort of guidance on that as well. Testing typically covers multiple sort of test types, including tests on your sort of endpoints to uncover vulnerabilities, fuzzy testing, which is sort of finding program errors or supplying malformed input data of your endpoints, port scanning for your endpoints as well. And the tools and techniques in this sort of guidance offer a holistic security model for organizations who want to move at pace and experiment with their technologies that aim to sort of drive innovation. A key element of DevSecOps is data-driven, event-driven processes. And these processes help teams identify, evaluate, and respond to potential risks. Many organizations choose to integrate alerts and usage data into their sort of IT service management or ITSM platform as well. So let's talk a little bit about the DevSecOps solution within GitHub. So the architecture is as follows. So Azure AD or Entra, Microsoft Entra, for SAML is used for sort of that single sign authentication that uses sort of FIDO strong authentication. Code spaces are used by developers to sort of begin working on tasks. They are pre-built development environments organized into containers that provide correctly configured IDEs that are equipped with sort of the required security scanning extensions. We have GitHub Actions as well. So these automatically scan the code to quickly find vulnerabilities and sort of coding errors when the new code is developed. And you can deploy build artifacts to Azure App Services while making changes to other sort of cloud resources such as the service endpoints. Then have pull requests or PRs, and these trigger code build and automated testing through sort of GitHub Actions. And GitHub encrypts secrets and credentials at rest and obfuscates these sort of entries in logs. We also have Azure Policy, and this evaluates Azure's resources that are in deployments. They can potentially deny releases, modify cloud resources, or create warning events in sort of the activity logs. Microsoft Defender for Cloud identifies attacks targeting applications that are running in the sort of deployed projects. And Azure Monitor continuously tracks and evaluates app behavior when sort of threats materialize, and it sends sort of alerts to start the process of rolling code back to the previous commits. So we're going to jump into the demo portal now. We're going to be looking at Defender for Cloud and specifically the sort of DevSecOps remediations we can do. So join me in the demo tenant. Welcome back to the demo portal. So, we're in our Azure portal here. We're in Microsoft Defender for Cloud. We've gone down to cloud security and regulatory compliance. We've been here a few times already. Specifically, I want to look at DS, which are those DevOps security controls. And there's 7, as we mentioned. I just wanted to go through some of these and show you some of the remediations. So DS2 is ensure software supply chain security control details. And in here, some of the remediations that we can do. Obviously, I've not got any all mine agreement because I don't have any that are relevant. But one of them is, for example, for the ensuring software supply chain security, GitHub repositories should have a Dependabot scanning enabled. GitHub repository should have dependency vulnerability scanning findings resolved, and Azure DevOps repository should have dependency vulnerability scanning findings resolved. So again, this is going to be constantly changing because as and when you do get a vulnerability, it's going to scan it. It's going to find an alert. You're going to be alerted, so you're going to have to resolve that. So this it's very going to be, unless if you're using GitHub, I'm not using GitHub or Azure DevOps, so that's why mine's green. But if you are using it, you're going to find regularly this will be red. So I won't worry too much. Just try and keep up to date with it. And then we have DS3, which is secure DevOps infrastructure. So again, I'm ignoring AWS resources for now, but again, some of the automated assessments for AWS is the code build project environment variable should not contain credentials, and code build GitHub or Bitbucket source repository URL should use OAuth. So again, make sure you've got those controls in place. From an Azure perspective, for DevOps, make sure Azure pipeline should not have secrets available to builds or forks. GitHub repositories should not use self-hosted runners. Azure DevOps Classic Azure Service Connection should not be used. Azure DevOps Service Connection should not grant access to all pipelines, and GitHub repository should have force pushes to default branches disabled. So again, just want to try and show some of those controls that are in place. Integrate static application security testing. Again, for Azure, GitHub repository should have secret scanning findings resolved. I've already seen that. So again, you might resolve this in another control, but it'll resolve it here as well. Just as it does that, that's kind of standard with Defender for Cloud. So again, just want to finally look at, for whatever reason, 5 and 7 are grayed out in mine because probably it's not they're not applicable. But with DS6, making sure you're running container images and they should have vulnerabilities resolved. Azure registry container images should have vulnerabilities resolved, and container host should be configured securely again. So just want to take a quick look at some of those regulatory compliance controls. And how and what remediations. We've already spoken about what they were for, but I just want to show some of the remediations that you can put in place. So yeah, hopefully you've gained a lot from that. I've got some useful links in the description. The GitHub exam practice exam sort of labs, and the repositories down in the description. Obviously a link to the Microsoft Learn content as well, which I strongly recommend you do, but also a link to Measure Up practice exam, which I definitely recommend you sort of invest in that, because it's always helped me when I've been studying for exams. So yeah, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to reach 20k by the end of the year. We're in August now, start of August, so want to try and get to that 20k before the end of the year. So yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for your support. Until next time, goodbye.